Before you assume this housing bill is dead, the key thing to know is that President Trump canceled the signing ceremony, but that does not automatically mean the housing package disappears. And if you're trying to buy a home, rent on a fixed income, help your adult kid afford a place, or simply understand why housing keeps eating up more of the household budget, this matters because the bill was aimed at one of the biggest problems in the country. There are not enough affordable homes, and the delay could affect how quickly any relief starts moving through the system. Let me know in the comments which feels like the bigger problem where you live right now: rent prices, home prices, mortgage rates, or just not enough homes available in the first place. Now, the basic story is pretty simple on the surface, but the politics behind it are not simple at all. Congress passed a bipartisan housing bill called the 21st Century Road to Housing Act, and it had support from both Republicans and Democrats. That part is important because housing is one of those issues where almost everybody agrees there is a problem, even if they disagree on the best solution. But instead of signing the bill as planned, President Trump canceled the event and said he would not move forward until Congress passes the Save America Act, which is his election security proposal. So this turned what was supposed to be a housing affordability moment into a much bigger political standoff. The president's argument is that election security comes first. His position is that requiring proof of citizenship and stronger voter identification rules would protect confidence in elections, and he has called the issue a national emergency. Supporters of that approach say secure elections are the foundation for everything else government does, because if voters do not trust the system, then every policy fight becomes even more divided. But there is another side to this, and this is where ordinary people may feel frustrated. The housing bill was not some small side issue. It was designed to deal with housing supply, building delays, vacant buildings, factory-built homes, veterans' housing opportunities, and large investors buying up single-family homes. None of that means your rent would drop tomorrow, and nobody should pretend one bill magically fixes housing affordability. But it was still one of the more serious bipartisan attempts to address the shortage of homes and the rising cost of housing. A simple way to think about the housing problem is this: if a town has 10 families looking for homes and only 6 homes available, prices go up. If builders face delays, permits take too long, land use rules are complicated, or financing is hard, then those missing homes do not get built quickly enough. And when supply stays tight, buyers compete harder, renters have fewer choices, and people on fixed incomes feel squeezed because their housing cost rises faster than their income. Now, one part of the bill getting attention is the focus on big institutional investors. These are large companies or investment groups that buy single-family homes, often turning them into rentals. Nationally, investors like this may not own a huge share of all homes, but in certain cities and neighborhoods, their presence can be much more noticeable. That matters because if a regular family is trying to buy a starter home and they're competing against a large investor with cash and scale, the regular family may feel like the deck is stacked against them. But we should be careful here too. Institutional investors are not the only reason housing is expensive. Mortgage rates, construction costs, zoning rules, labor shortages, insurance costs, property taxes, and local supply all play a role. In some places, the investor issue is a major concern. In other places, the bigger issue may be that not enough homes were built for years. So the practical takeaway is not one villain caused every problem. It is more like several pressure points are hitting families at the same time. So this is why the canceled signing matters politically. Supporters of the housing bill wanted to show that Congress could still come together on something practical, especially with so many people worried about rent, mortgages, and whether their children or grandchildren will ever be able to buy a home. When the signing was canceled, critics argued that housing affordability was being used as leverage for a separate election bill. That is the criticism you are hearing from Democrats, and even some Republicans seem surprised by the timing. At the same time, the administration's view is different. From Trump's perspective, the Save America Act is not just another political demand. He is framing it as a basic election integrity issue that should be handled before other priorities move forward. Supporters believe stronger national voting rules would prevent illegal voting and increase trust in election results. And even though non-citizen voting in federal elections is already illegal, supporters argue that stronger verification would make the system more consistent and easier for the public to trust. But here is where the process gets complicated. Passing the Save America Act through the Senate is difficult because most major legislation needs 60 votes to overcome a filibuster. That means Republicans would likely need Democratic support, and Democrats strongly oppose the bill. Some Republicans also know the math is very hard. So when Trump says the housing bill should wait until the Save America Act passes, critics ask a practical question. How long would that actually take? And what happens to the housing bill in the meantime? Now, there's one important detail people should not miss. Canceling a signing ceremony is not the same as vetoing a bill. The president generally has a 10-day review window, not counting Sundays, after a bill is presented to him. If he signs it, it becomes law. If he vetoes it, Congress can try to override the veto. And if he does nothing while Congress remains in session, the bill can become law without his signature. So the ceremony was canceled, but that does not necessarily mean the bill is finished. So then, the big question is what this means for your money. If you are renting, the bill would not cut your rent check next month. If you're trying to buy, it would not suddenly make a 7% mortgage feel cheap. And if you are retired and living on Social Security, it would not immediately lower property taxes, insurance, or HOA fees. But housing policy often works slowly. It affects what gets built, how quickly projects move, what kinds of homes are available, and whether communities have enough options for seniors, workers, veterans, and families. So before anyone treats this as just another Washington fight, it is worth remembering that housing is a monthly bill issue. It is not abstract. Rent and mortgage payments are due every month. Insurance premiums can jump. Property taxes can rise. Adult children may move back home because buying is out of reach. Seniors may want to downsize, but cannot find anything affordable nearby. These policy fights eventually show up in very ordinary ways around the kitchen table. Also, the political strategy here could have consequences beyond housing. When a president links one issue to another, it can create leverage, but it can also create uncertainty. Lawmakers who supported the housing bill may wonder whether future bipartisan deals can be held up over unrelated priorities. Supporters of Trump may see that as strong negotiating. Critics may see it as risking practical legislation for a political demand that does not currently have the votes. And that is the tension running through this whole situation. One side is saying election rules are the foundation, and the country should not move forward on other major priorities until that is handled. The other side is saying housing affordability is already a crisis for millions of people, and delaying a bipartisan housing bill makes daily life harder for families who are already stretched. Both sides are talking about trust, but they mean different kinds of trust. Trust in elections versus trust that government can solve basic cost of living problems. So the next thing to watch is whether Trump signs the housing bill. Lets it become law without his signature, vetoes it, or keeps trying to use it as pressure for the Save America Act. Also watch how Senate Republicans respond, because they are caught between supporting the president's priorities and dealing with the reality of Senate rules. If the Save America Act still cannot get 60 votes, this standoff could become a test of how far Republican leaders are willing to go on the filibuster. So do not panic over one canceled ceremony, but do pay attention to what happens next, because whether this bill becomes law or gets caught in a larger political fight could shape how Washington handles housing costs from here.